What falls under the umbrella of company culture? Do ping pong tables and free lunches make a great culture, or is it something more?
This podcast is brought to you by Archimed, fast and focused design and manufacturing.
I'm Greg Maurer, founder and owner of Archimed.
And I'm Caroline Squatrigo, talent engagement specialist. We are on a journey to grow, learn, and gain expertise in small to mid-sized company culture. Join us. On this episode, we will discuss what company culture really is and is not. Is it ping pong tables and coffee bars? If employees don't feel appreciated, do things automatically make everything better? Does employee appreciation even fall under company culture? We're not really sure. Let's find out. Helping us to find these answers today will be Randy Brown. Randy is currently an executive coach and career mentor at Butler's Lacy School of Business. Prior to this, Randy was the chief HR officer at WellPoint for over 12 years.
Okay, Caroline, what's the question of the day?
Today, we are going to answer the question of what is and is not company culture.
Right. Every company has a culture, right? Good, bad, or somewhere in between. Mostly somewhere in between, I would guess. And it's sort of indefinable. It's something that you can't necessarily touch, but you know it's there. And sometimes you can feel it as soon as you step foot into a business. And as I think, Caroline, as you said, it's like the air that you know it's in there, you know you need it. The quality of it can vary, but you just can't quite touch it. So I have a story about company culture, and it relates to when I started to work at a law firm a couple decades ago. And at that point, these corporate perks were taking off. You know, the Google perks, the Silicon Valley perks. Like, I think Google had a roller hockey rink inside their facility, nap pods, massages, ping pong tables, free food, good salaries, all that kind of stuff. And then in the subsequent 10 or 20 years, there's been a lot of research that suggests that job satisfaction beats out perks and even beats out salary. So when I was working at the law firm in Chicago, they paid me well. If I worked late, they bought me dinner and gave me a free ride home. Plenty of paid vacation, tons of administrative support, and encouragement to do pro bono work. But what they didn't have is Professor Sutton's no asshole rule. And so all the perks in the world, for me at least, would not make up for it if I was assigned to one of those asshole partners who made it their job to mistreat the young associates without any consequence. And so those, if you were on a partner track, you sucked it up for 8 or 10 years and you made partners so that you didn't have to work with those people anymore. And you could bring in those big partner salaries. But I had ambitions outside of law. And so I wasn't there to make partner. And I saw no reason after 3 years to stay on when they could pursue their goals with other associates, and I could pursue my professional goals elsewhere. And I'm sure they've found better lawyers than I was in any case. But that kind of company culture that had a bunch of perks and good pay for me didn't work because I was looking for job satisfaction and I didn't get it there. Well, since we're on a journey to learn more, maybe we need to get some more experience to weigh in here. What do you think?
I would completely agree. So let's call in Randy Brown. Randy was the chief HR officer at WellPoint for well over a decade. He's currently a career mentor at the Lacy School of Business. So full disclosure, Randy was my career mentor, and I hold that title proudly because he was the best. But let's dive in with Randy. Randy, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Nice to be here, Caroline.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us. I think you're going to be able to enlighten us a bit on the topic that we are discussing today. And I kind of want to start really broad because it's a broad topic and just ask you, what is company culture?
Wow. Yeah, let's just start with a big one, right? I love simple definitions. And the simplest definition that has always stuck with me about culture is it's the way we do things around here. It's a company's collective habits. Another way of saying it is it's the company's personality. So just like human beings and individuals have personalities that people notice by the way we show up, companies have personalities. And I would say a company's personality is essentially its culture. It's the collective habits that get reinforced over and over and get exhibited day in and day out by the people who work there.
We have established a set of values, a mission, a vision. We try individually as leaders to walk the walk. Are we doing everything we can to establish a personality? What can we do that's proactive?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say companies have cultures. It's not whether you're going to have one or not. It's a question of whether you shape it and you form it in the way that you want to. So a lot of times people will mistake values for culture. Values are what you hope to be. Culture is what you are. So to the extent that values line up with culture, that's really what most companies strive for. They have these aspirational ways that they want to be. But then if the people who work there every day follow those aspirational values and build them into their routines and habits, then you've got something magic. Yeah, how do you get there? You reinforce the things that matter, but more importantly than anything, you role model what you want. So if you want an organization that feels empowered, then as leadership needs to empower its workforce, and they need to not punish people when they make mistakes that are done with good intention and with good information. So you get what you reward, and you sort of push away what you punish. And just like families, just like individuals, what we reward usually gets repeated, and what we sort of punish usually gets eliminated.
Randy, one thing I'm really curious about is I feel like we hear a lot about these like big Silicon Valley companies who are known for their culture and everyone loves working there. And we hear about like catered lunches and game rooms and nap pods and gym memberships, all of that. And is that really like, how much does that contribute to a culture, or people being happy with the culture?
Mostly a lot of research just would suggest that what people want is to be appreciated and valued. And that shows up in many ways. You can get there without doing having ping pong tables and all those kind of things. But if you want to really sort of tell people this is one of the ways that we value you. We value you by having I don't know, flexible time, game rooms, things that socially appeal to you. And you have to think about who your workforce is. A lot of that Silicon Valley stuff is geared around the type of people that they aspire to attract, and I think they align their benefits to be attractive to people. That's just one aspect of their culture. What's more important, I think, whether it's Silicon Valley or Midwest companies, is what do we want our folks to do day in and day out, and are we encouraging that by our own behavior, and are we rewarding that and continuing to reinforce it by the decisions we make and the communications we make.
And I know that Anthem was acquisitive for many years. Did you, at your role at Anthem, face M&A environments that posed cultural difficulties?
Oh boy, did we? Yes. When I was at Anthem, we acquired 10 companies in the 12 years that I was there. Acquiring companies is easy, integrating them is hard. And one of my key jobs was to work on the integration of the companies that we acquired. That's when I really started learning and paying attention to culture, because there was a study shown that 74% of acquired companies failed to realize the stated promise up front of what the marriage was going to create. And the number one driver was lack of attention to cultural integration. So that's a long and fancy way of saying when you acquire a company, you got to pay attention to their norms, their habits, the things that have brought them success, the behaviors that they value, and kind of compare them to your own values and how they line up. And when you see gaps and differences, you have to find a way to address those gaps. There's no right or wrong formula, but you have to pay attention to where you're different, and you have to talk about what you're going to do about those differences. And when you're similar, you've got to celebrate that and then say, wow, we've got an easy one here. We're so alike. This is going to work beautifully. It's the gaps that you have to pay attention to. We actually acquired a small company once. I'll never forget. It was a very innovative company, and we destroyed the value that we created unintentionally by trying to over-anthemize them. We just tried to impose a lot of big company policies in a small company environment. And in that case, creativity was something that we really valued by that company, and we kind of sucked the life out of them. So we learned, luckily, early that we need to pay more attention and do a better job of that. And so, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, we learned a lot about those issues in our acquisition of a company in Memphis 3 years ago or so. And it wasn't just the company culture that was different, but the culture in Indianapolis, a Midwestern culture versus a Mid-South culture in Memphis. That was a stark difference that I don't think we fully appreciated until we really got into it. And by then, the mistakes were a little more expensive. Had we gotten ahead of that during the diligence and thought about and strategized around how we would address it, I think we would have had a better outcome.
It so matters, because when you integrate companies, you don't have to be the same in every aspect. You can leave room for local differences and uniquenesses. I remember before going to Anthem, I worked at a consumer electronics company, and we acquired a small Seattle-based kind of garage shop company. And I went out to sort of meet with the employees, and the average age was like 24, and the average age of the company I worked for then was probably about 41. And, they were petrified that we were just going to try and make them like us. And I remember meeting with the leader, and he said, before you get in front of the employees, let me tell you the number one question they have and the only question they really care about. I said, what's that? He said, are you going to let us keep Beer Friday? And I said, tell me about Beer Friday. And it turns out that, at the end of the week, they kind of had a keg, and they had their own little kind of informal gathering to celebrate the hard work they put in all week. And they made sure people got home safely and nobody got left, in a dangerous way. And, that was an easy one, right? So right away, integrating this company and killing Beer Friday, what would that have done? Nothing but create ill will. So, we didn't have Beer Friday immediately everywhere at my company, but we sure kept it there. And then, it made the integration kind of go so much smoothly that we just recognized up front, that matters to you. It doesn't have to be everywhere. We're going to keep it here. And then we could focus on the important stuff.
I think it's interesting, Randy, like something as small as Beer Friday, and that's what they were worried about. But do you think it all just comes down to feeling valued and feeling like whoever the company acquiring is like valuing the company that they are acquiring, and not just trying to come in and do a takeover?
Yeah, it's about valuing them and respecting them, because hopefully if you acquired a company, it's because there's something of value in that company that you want to have as part of yours. And to just sort of bulldoze in and say, we've bought you and now it's, our way, is really kind of a not so smart way of doing it. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have to make changes. And it doesn't, one of the biggest lies in merger and acquisition is nothing will change, because something is always going to change, right? So you just have to be honest. You have to get to know the people. You got to get to know what matters. And it's kind of like in human relationships, right? If you're trying to establish a new relationship with another human being, you want to take the time to get to know them, understand how they operate, what matters. Same thing with mergers and integrations. So yeah, I think it's not all that complex. It's just doing those basic things that people respond to.
Thank you, Randy. I always feel like I've grown a lot of wisdom after talking to you about things.
Well, right
And
back at you, Caroline. I learned from you too.
I think our listeners will appreciate your words here on this topic. But yeah, I thank you for coming on, and I thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and good luck to Archimed, because the very fact that you're doing this shows that you're paying attention to the importance of culture, and I'm sure all the people that work there really appreciate that.
Thanks, Randy. We have a lot to learn, and we appreciate that you're helping us on our journey.
Fun to be with you. Thanks again.
Randy's awesome. Caroline, what did we learn today?
I mean, I think we can kind of sum it up in a company's culture is its basic personality. It's the essence of how people interact and work. And, Greg mentioned it earlier. It's kind of the air in the room. Like you can feel it, but you can't always see it. And Simon Sinek has talked about this a lot, and he sums it up pretty well. And really, it's just your company doesn't have a culture; it is a culture.
Yeah, and I'm also enchanted with the idea of firing high performing assholes, and I think that takes a lot of courage. And I think company culture is as much about who you fire as it is about who you hire. And I do think for a lot of companies, it does take courage to fire somebody who produces well for the bottom line, but poorly as it relates to culture.
Yeah, and I mean, without something like the no asshole rule, how can people really trust you? I mean, companies typically have these values around respect and hard work and treating each other certain ways. And if we let the assholes stick around, then what does that really say? And one thing to think about is, it doesn't mean get rid of the assholes. It means maybe they need to be coached to improve their EQ. Maybe they have some difficult things that they need to overcome. And a company can be there to help them through that positive transformation. But if not, then maybe they need to look at being let go.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we ought to give our employees a chance to improve. And corporately, there's a well understood a concept called the Performance Improvement Plan, the PIP. And there's a professor at UC SF, Dr. Cameron Sepah, who calls it a values improvement plan instead of a performance improvement plan, which is an idea to say, hey, these are our values, our corporate values, and here are the results we demand, and here are the toxic behaviors that you need to get rid of, and it gives them a chance to improve and to conform to the values of the organization and get rid of those toxic behaviors. I like that concept a lot. So definitely culture needs to be demonstrated in practice, not just by leadership. Certainly leadership it starts there and they need to walk the walk, but I think the demand is that it gets practiced by everybody. And if they see it, they'll trust it. If they hear it, I think there's going to be skepticism if they hear it and don't see it. If they read it on the wall but don't see it practiced, if they hear it, at the all associates meetings, but they don't see it practiced, if leaders aren't held accountable, then I think that signals that it's okay to ignore the organization's mission, vision, and values. So I think it starts with leadership, but there has to be demand that everybody walk the walk.
Yeah, Greg. So you and I actually read a critique of Don't Fuck Up the Culture by Scott Berkun, and he talks about this a lot. And one thing that he mentions is, every owner, every CEO, every, leader, someone that people see as a leader throughout the company is really a chief cultural officer. And the key thing here is, people don't look to those people's speeches or values or, lists and mission, vision, all of that. What they really focus on is their actual behavior. And their behavior is what defines the culture at the end of the day, not just what they say. And so it's really important that people walk the walk and really put that effort into embodying a company's values and what you want that culture to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes beyond words on a wall, beyond ping pong tables and happy hours. And it goes beyond words. It must be backed up with actions.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. You can find more information about us and all of our episodes on our website, archimed.com. You'll find us under the What's New tab. On our next episode, we will explore bad company culture. Are there company cultures that are inherently bad? How does bad culture impact a successful company? Once you have bad culture, can you fix it? We'll be joined by two guests. Julie Manning-Magid, Executive and Academic Director of the Randall L. Tobias Center for Leadership Excellence at Indiana University. We'll also be joined by Amy Freelander Hoffman, the former Head of Business Development at Uber. See you then.